Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to this new series, which is a series on Aguinaldo. Much more like a guide for our reflections, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I will give the entire homily here, but some points by which we can reflect as we journey throughout the 9 days of our Aguinaldo. In this year, in accord with the CBCP preparation for the 500 years of Christianity in the Philippines, our theme for this year, Aguinaldo 2020, is about Missio Agentes, gifted to give. Gifted to give. Missio Agentes means mission to the peoples or mission to the world. So depending on your translation, but still the idea is the same. It's the mission to the world, no? And we are gifted to give. As much as I can maybe speculate as to the reason why they choose this particular theme, is that this is also a cause or a call for mission. For 500 years, the Philippines is a Catholic country, or to be more general, a Christian country, but I think we lack this missionary zeal. We have received the gift of faith, but we are not that zealous in propagating our faith. That's why before the East Timor became a country, the Philippines is considered the only Catholic country in Asia. But of course, with East Timor, which is Catholic, so we are now one of the two Catholic nations, or predominantly Catholic nations, in the Asian region, or in Asia. So I think the challenge of this particular year is for us to become missionaries. But of course, we are not going to become missionaries like the missionaries who go abroad and would preach the gospel and convert people. We cannot do that. But in one way or the other, in our personal capacity, we can also become missionaries in so many ways, and that is what we're going to reflect on for the next 9 days. So for today, December 16, 2020, day 1, our theme is Gifted to Give. Christianity came to our shores 500 years ago when the Spaniards, looking for the fabled island of spices in the east. But their conquest has brought also, in a way, while there are a lot of force and shall we say oppression, injustice that happened, we also received the gift of faith from the hands of the Spaniards, and that's 500 years ago. Now, the day 1 of Aguinaldo Masses is usually dedicated to the young people. So the country's demography, if you're going to look at the data, the more recent, that was 2015, but of course with 2020, I think there's also another census, but in the census from 2015 showed that 60% of our population belongs to the 30-year-old and younger category. That's big. More than half of our population is young. And that is, in a way, a promise for the future. It's a good promise for the future. Why? Because for the next, at least, for the next 20 years, we are assured of a youthful workforce. Unlike in other countries wherein you will find people there who are already in their 60s and upwards still working. I remember when I visited Hong Kong, for example, or Japan, and you will find that they are already old and they are still working. I particularly remember when I went to Japan, and there was this kind of a resort place where there's a lake there. I forgot the name of the lake, and then we had lunch there in one of the stops, no? And I remember that the ones serving us are not young people, but they're old ladies, and they're carrying big kettle of of tea. And I was imagining, I was telling, my God, they should be already retired. But no, they're not yet retired. They're still working. Why are they working? Because the demography of Japan is inverted. Unlike ours, which has a big portion of young people, there's very few young people, and most of the young people will go to big cities, living behind the olds in their towns and in their, well, in their ancestral towns or hometowns. And so it is not surprising to see that in many Asian countries, particularly with an inverted demography, to find old people still working. But for us, it's a different thing. For the next 10 to 20 years, we are assured of a very youthful workforce. And I believe that is also a promise, no? A kind of a promising future for the young. Tells us about John the Baptist's disciples who asked Jesus whether he is the Messiah, or are they supposed to wait for another person? So the disciples of John went to Jesus and asked him, are you the Messiah? Or are we still going to look for another one? Are we going to wait more? So now this inquisitive curiosity is supposedly a characteristic of young people who are eager to discover what the world has to offer them. Now you see, because that is always our characterization of the young, or at least of being young. When you continue to be amazed and to be curious, and that's the character of a young person. So it may even say that people who ask questions are those who are interested. Because the disciples of John will not ask Jesus, are you the Messiah, if they're not interested at all with the Messiah. So they are interested. Now, Jesus replied to them by informing them that sight is restored. The sick were healed, the dead were raised to life, and those possessed by evil spirits were freed. So Jesus is telling them that the kingdom is known for not for what it claims, but for what is happening. And it is healing and miracles that testifies to the presence of God in the world. And now, in connection with that, I think that is also one thing that we should be aware of. Many of our young people today would want to see deeds rather than hear words. And we have to admit that sometimes we, the elders, or at least those who are there, not really anymore 30s, not in their 30s anymore, sometimes we want to give a lot of advices by words, which is our task. Because who will be the one to teach them if we were not going to teach them? But at the same time, I believe that our words must have to be accompanied by our works that will appropriately show the consonance of what we are saying, no, with what we are saying. In other words, it's always to be testified by our works and our words. And if we fail, if we have mistakes, if we have sins, we have to admit it, that we are at fault. There's nothing bad if you admit your faults, rather than keep it and hide behind the hypocrisy of perfection. No? Because I believe sometimes there are some people who are so good at being hypocrites in terms of showing to the world that they are so good, though they can barely scratch a plate, or they can barely break an eggshell. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes there is hypocrisy of perfection. Now, the world, particularly the young, will always look for answers in the church. I believe in the Philippines, the church is still, if not the most trusted institution in the country, is at least one of those in the top 3, I think. No? We are still trusted by the people, by the Filipinos. Unlike in the other countries where in the church's integrity and credibility is gone into the winds. So the best testimony that the church can give is through its actions. During the height of the national lockdown, remember, March, April, and May, the social media echoed with the question, where is the church? The question begs the answer, connoting that the church seems to be absent from what is happening. And so the young people were asking, where is the church? Those who loved the church and knew of her efforts answered back with posts showing the massive charitable acts. They knew that the church silently works among the poor and those affected by COVID-19. Many of these were made by young people who are active in the church. And I believe that is one of the, in my own research and in my own book that I wrote, I think last year or the other year, it is really important and significant to know that the young people who are active in the church would come to love the church. So, if you want the young people to imbibe a love for the church, engage them in the church, and they will know. If they come to know the church, they will come to love her also and be more active in her life, in the life of the Spirit and in the life of the church. So in that question, in that exchange of where's the church and the young people answering, here is the church, and that is, I think, where my hope is, that our young people, if they are guided well, they have a lot to give. They are filled with so many talents. They're filled with so many skills, actually, that we do not have because we have missed learning it, for example. And so they have this immense potentialities that they can still be able to share, as long as there is someone to guide them, or there's the church to guide them. Now, the world will always question the role of the church in society, and it can only respond convincingly with its works that reflect the Lord's loving presence among us. So, the best answer that the church can give to the young, both believers and non-believers, to the question, where is the church, is by doing charitable acts and becoming reflections of the Lord's loving presence among us, of forgiveness, of compassion, and of understanding and mutual respect. The gift that the church can give to the world is its testimony of God's healing and loving presence. In turn, those who are gifted are expected to share their gifts, because a gift is truly a gift when it is shared. And I think that last part, that the gift becomes truly a gift, or a gift is meant to be shared, I took that from the idea of Henry Nouwen, one of the very good and one of my favorite spiritual writers, because he said that if you receive a gift, it doesn't mean that you just keep it, because if you're going to keep it, it will disappear. It was given to you by God as a charism, or as a talent, or as a what they call this one, charism, talent, or skills, because it is only partial, parang it is still incomplete. It will only find completion when you share it to other people. For example, just like a very good, a very simple example is, for example, if you have the gift of writing, if you just write, you're a good writer, you are meant to be a good writer, but you're not writing anything, or you're not sharing your works, well, it will not be appreciated, and the gift will not be complete. If, for example, you were given by the Lord the ability to sing, the talent of singing or dancing, and if you just sing inside the bathroom or dance inside your room and not showing to other people, of course, that gift will just disappear, and that gift is not completed. It is only completed when you share it with other people. So I believe that is something that we have to realize, something that we have to do ourselves. Every one of us, particularly our gift of faith, is meant to be shared. And by sharing our faith, we become missionaries, not necessarily to the world, but to our families, to our loved ones, to our friends, and to many others that God will allow us to meet along our journey. So thank you very much. Thank you for watching this first day of our reflection on the Aguinaldo 2020. Hopefully, you will continue to watch for the rest of the novena. Thank you very much and have a lovely day.